That's where you don't want to go.
Use melody this morning that at least comes from my junior high days. Morning has broken just like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the world. Ela donan kol hamasim, baruch umvoy avi kol nishama. God love it to olam, da'adut vuna sadevi moto. Amit gae חיות הקודש בנדר בכבוד המרכבה זכות ומששור לפני חיסור חסד ורחמים לפני חיבור טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות ראשים בקרב זה לאים זיכרון צדיקים נוגה, נעזיבם בכל העולם. שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים באמה רצון קונם. בעברך נותנים לשמור, זהלה ורינה לזכר מלכותו. קרא לשמש ויזרחו, ראה ויהי צורת לבנה. שבח נותנים לו כל צמרום, תפארת וגדולה שרפים ופנים. וחיות הקודש, וחיות הקודש, יאירי 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 יאירי.
The theme of the entire morning service is all about nature and the way we see God manifest in nature. So this is an interpretation of that by Rami Shapiro below the line of 185.
Nature is God's nagun, a wordless melody of unfolding life. To awaken to God, we must hear the nagun. To awaken to God, we must listen in deep silence. Silence arises when thinking ceases. If we would know God, we must quiet the mind, cease the chatter that passes for knowledge, when in fact it only flatters the foolish. We cannot live without words, but let us not imagine that words are sufficient. As a symphony needs rest to lift music out of noise, so we need silence to lift the truth out of words.
Thank you, Ralph. I want to invite you to turn to page 275. And for this part of the service, we're reminded to bring together the four corners of our talit. We wrap them around our left forefinger in anticipation of the Shema, which will come on the next page. But appropriately enough, the lines on this page that remind us of doing this is that it says that we pray for the day that people all around the world from the four corners of the earth, meaning in humanity in all its diversity, will come together in the worship of the one God and of the one big truth. So we'll sing that on page 275 to the melody of Hatikva, which is it invokes essentially the hope that Israel would represent the beginning of that ingathering of exiles from around the world.
Avienu lesholom, me'ar balkan for haaretz, v'tolichenu kom be'yod le'artzenu, ki el borei shutata, v'keravta שמך הגדול, סלע באמת, סלע באמת, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Leolam ba'ed, ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
Take a few moments to read some of the passages on the next few lines, next few pages rather, biblical selection 1 and 2, and then we'll join together for the final paragraph of the Shema at 285. A few moments of quiet reading and reflection on these pages. It's customary for the third paragraph on 285 for us to hold together the talit in the four corners and our left forefinger. And when we see and say the word tzitzit, we kiss those tzitzit as a symbol of us worshiping God together. We'll read together in Hebrew. Join me. Vayomer Adonai Moshe Limor, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yamarta alehem v'yasu lehem tzitzit hakanfei b'gdehem l'darotam v'nanu al tzitzit hakanaf petil techelet v'yal lachem l'tzitzit v'ritem oto v'zgartem et kol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem otam v'lo taturu acharei lebavchem v'charei inechem asher atem zonim achareihem Laman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kidoshim le'lohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem be'eretz Mitzrayim v'yod lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet. At the top of page 291.
תהילות ליל עליון ברוך ומבורך, משה מרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה. בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם. בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. שיר החדש שבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל, עובדי חינומך, יהודה וישראל, גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, God Israel.
Join together in the Amidah, page 295.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Sarah Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Rivka Elohei Yaakov Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה כל חי ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות כל חי, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיין כל חי.
Page 303.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום. ככתוב על יד נביאך, וכרזה אל זה ואמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנשאים לאומת צרפים, לאומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי, מתי תמלוך בציון, מתי, מתי תמלוך בציון, מתי, מתי תמלוך בציון, מתי, מתי תמלוך בציון. בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה, תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. ועינינו תראנה, תראנה ממלכותך, כל דבר האמור בשירי עושיך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Remain standing. The Amidah runs through page 323. Take the time for those prayers or those in your heart. We'll join back together at the end with Oseh Shalom as we join arms for a final song. Invite you to remain standing and join arms with someone next to you.
Oseh Shalom Bimroma.
Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel ve'imru Amen. Shalom Bimroma. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel ve'imru Amen. Shalom Bimroma. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel ve'imru Imru Amen.
Imru
Imru Amen. So there's some things that you can only see from this perspective, meaning being on the bima, okay? So while we're in the middle of Osir Shalom, I see Jeff Tereski walking into the synagogue, okay? He looks around and he sees his wife Betsy in the arms of another man. In fact, in the arms of two other men, okay? But he doesn't take it, he actually takes a little step back. He finds someone else to hug. It's fine. That's what community is all about, right? And now they're together again, Betsy and Jeff. It's lovely. Please turn back on page 309 as we join together in Yisbachu. 309.
Yismachu
B'malchutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Korei Oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Korei Oneg Shabbat.
מקווה ששבישה כולם יצאו ויתענגו מטומך שבת
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Bekorei, Oneg Shabbat.
והשביעי רצית בו וקידשת שבת, חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת.
ישמחו במלכותך Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Bekorei, Oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Korei Oneg Shabbat.
למעשה בראשית
Shabbat.
זכר למעשה בראשית שבת.
Everybody. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Bekorei Oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Bekorei Oneg Shabbat. Betsy, since I teased you already, come on up. That's your reward. Page 237, please turn back. For an English selection, you'll find on the bottom of, below the line of page 237, it's the interpretation from Art Green. Sometimes you don't know the initials here. AG is Arthur Green, who was one of the leading teachers of Jewish mysticism in the world today. And he talks about, reflects on a passage from the Shabbat service about Me'orer Yeshenim, the notion of awakening those who are asleep, or those who are in slumber. It's a beautiful commentary. Betsy will share it with us.
Who wakens all who sleep? Our faith awakens us from the sleep of our unawareness and calls us to release the bound, to raise up the fallen, and to uplift those who are bent over. In this, we are doing godly work, serving as the limbs of the divine presence in this world. It is only through our acting in this way that God's work is done in the human community. And it is only by recognizing such acts as God's work that we transcend ourselves and our own needs in fulfilling them.
Page 381, Reader's Cottage.
יקבל שמי רבה.
Amen.
ילמד ורכירותיו ימלך מלכותיו בחיי חול ומחול וחיי דכל בית ישראל ויגלו בזמן קריב אמרו אמן אמן יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ועמי עמי יתברך וישתבח יפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה ברכו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן אמן תתקבל צנות הנובות ההון דכל בית ישראל קודם אבוהון דיבי שמיה ואמרו אמן אמן יש למה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן אמן.
Invite Anita Lampo to come to the Bima to open the Ark as we invite you to turn to page 383 for our Torah service. 383.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמי וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם אדוני לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום אהבה רבתי חטאתי ברצונך את ציון תבנה חומות ירושלים תבנה חומות ירושלים כי לך לבד בטחנו מלך ונישא אדוני. ויהי בנשוא אהרון ויאמר משה וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מצוות תצא תורה כי מצוות תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים שנתן תורה שנתן תורה לעם ישראל בקדושה.
On page 393, Cheryl first, and we respond.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo.
Gadlu Adonai iti, uneromemo Shemo Yachdav. Lecha.
Adonai Hagidula Hagivura Hatiferet Kichol Bashamayim Uva. Adonai Hamamlacha V'Hamid Nasei L'Chol L'Rosh Una V'Hishtachavu V'Kadoshu Roman. Yisrael be'orait the Kudish Abarichu Chadu Yisrael be'orait the Kudish Abarichu Chadu Torah Torah Hallelujah. Thank you so much. Charles, pull it again. Torah, Torah, hallelujah. Torah, hallelujah. Yada, da, 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 da. Yada, da, 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 Torah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom. If you didn't get one of these, if someone could go out and just get a handful for those who don't have it, you're going to need one for the next 20 minutes or so. So we have a few people coming out and you can raise your hand. We'll be fine. Well, this is a Dutch Shalom for you. Ask someone to help, and one person, not one person, but 17 people go out to help, which is great. So raise your hand if you need one of the salmon colored text pages. So don't look at the sheet yet because we're not up to it yet, okay? What I want to do is I want to just give you a context for what we're reading this week, and then I'll tell you why you have the sheet in front of you, okay? So eyes front first, okay? So the parsha this week is Truma, beginning with Exodus chapter 25. Last week we had Mishpatim, which had a lot of the, actually a very beautiful and elevating set of the key laws from the Ten Commandments and beyond. So there's a lot to drash on last week. This week, Truma actually begins the fundraising campaign for first the tabernacle, and it'll grow with the next 10 chapters of the book of Exodus to build out the entire holy space. And actually in your Chumash, there's a diagram, which I think is very helpful. In the original, it's 544. If you have the newer version in yellow, the page number, you actually see what's going to be built. So first they build the tabernacle, which is what is going to contain the 10 commandments, okay? And then they're going to build it further out because as they wander through the desert for the next 40 years, what's going to be their sacred space? And you have it diagrammed on 544 in the old version. What's the new page on the new one? That's the one I said. What? The new one. There's another page, same page? That's the old version. And the new page? 604, thank you. 604 or 544, you have a diagram of what's being built. So first, the campaign is for the tabernacle. That's what we're going to read about this week. And then the campaign continues as they build out the rest of the holy space in the desert. There is a very famous verse, which is verse 8, chapter 25 of Exodus, verse 8, which is V'yasuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham, which means make me a sanctuary so that I might dwell among them. And is beautifully drashed by the rabbis, almost in a way that anticipates some of the spiritual interpretations of the 21st century, saying that for the rabbis, they believe that what this meant was, build me a tabernacle and I, God, will somehow be dwelling in your midst, as if God was an entity of some kind. For moderns or reconstructionists who have a harder time with that literal notion, the interpretation, you don't have to wait for the 21st century. You have rabbis in the Middle Ages already say what it means is building a sanctuary for Shachanti B'tocham. The grammar also allows to say, and God will dwell within you. It's beautiful because you don't have to do anything with the Hebrew to get the exact same interpretation. The latter being a much more spiritual interpretation, the former being a much more kind of normative rabbinic notion that God is an entity that is in the sky. And now, as you build the tabernacle, He, in air quotes, will dwell in your midst. One of the things that brought to my mind, and I'm not going to drash on Truma today because I want to do something else, but I can't let the moment pass, given the fact that Truma is the classic parsha that rabbis like to use to kick off capital campaigns. The coincidence of Truma being read on the first anniversary of the war in Ukraine should not be lost on us, okay? In the last year, the Jewish community alone, so I want to talk about the Jewish community now, there's more than going on. The Jewish community alone has raised $85 million for social services and aid to Ukrainian refugees, which comes to about $250,000 a day, if you do the math for the year. In the course of the year, about 700,000 meals were paid for by this money. About 65,000 people made aliyah to Israel. Israel opened its doors to Ukrainian refugees. About 130,000 Ukrainians, not just Jews, Ukrainians of all religions, received medical care. And 180,000 Ukrainians were resettled here in America with those funds from the Jewish community. And that's only a fraction of what's been done. But I just want to say that the generosity of the Jewish community again and again comes to the aid of people in need, regardless of race, religion, creed, or nationality. And just that coincidence necessarily means to be mentioned and highlighted here. So that's the Parsha. But what I wanted to do today is actually something a little bit different, a little bit more maybe challenging, because we're only about a week away from Purim. And there's some very interesting investigations of Purim in rabbinic literature, which actually speculate on what the connection might be between Purim and Yom Kippur. And you might say, like, whoa, it's like something that doesn't go together. I don't know. It doesn't come to my mind. Where do those things come together? Why would you even think about putting those things together, right? Well, first, literally, you actually have in the word Yom Kippur, the word Pur, okay? So, and there's a wordplay about Yom Kippur is a day like Purim, possibly. So the rabbis love wordplay. So that's part of what's going on here for sure, okay? But it's actually way more complicated than that. And I want you to engage in some investigation before I give you some big answers to it. So what I've done is I put together a small text study with 4 passages from rabbinic literature that explores the possible connection between Yom Kippur and Purim, okay? And what I want you to do is the following. I want everyone to stand up and find a partner who you're not related to, and preferably who you don't know, because this will happen much better. Your conversation will be much better with someone who you don't know. So 2 things happen. Even if you are totally confused by the text, you'll at least walk away knowing someone you didn't know when you walked in. But actually, in good conversation, it's actually better not to have any preconceived notions about who the other person is or what they might say. It's just fresher that way, okay? So what I want you to do is I want everyone to stand up, okay? Move out of your rows. You can't stay in your rows, okay? Find something you don't know. There are 4 texts with a question at the end of each text. You can choose any text here to discuss, and I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do it, okay? Don't leave anyone out, just pairs. Find someone you don't know. Find a corner of the room. Choose one text to study. Okay. Okay, shh. Okay, so what you want to do is once you're in a pair, okay, and use there's more space. You're gonna be inside of this away. There's plenty of space. Spread out, okay? There are 4 different texts. Each one has a question, okay? My suggestion is you probably stay with only one of the texts. Don't do all 4. We'll discuss all 4 when we come back together, but just choose one that intrigues you to decide. Make that decision in under a minute because you only have about 12 minutes to do this, okay? Choose one of the 4 questions that you want to talk about. You can do any one you want to do.
How do we choose?
How do you choose?
Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Jeff, your threesome. Go with Sheer. Here we go. Done. You want to study?
Am I gonna study the music in minutes?
Oh. Right. So maybe outside of it, Are you surprised by this teaching?
Well, if you look at it, yeah, it makes me think of this whole idea of the Jewish traditions. It's back in that cycle, back in the. It's true. It's everything. It's kind of like, to me, it's like everything there is. Yeah, it's we don't need to mark them, but don't practice that. Yeah, but it's not-
And I did put it. The notion about keeping that up. Here, reminds me of the where the stereo.
Yeah, let me know. This one makes sense. So the rubber will be like Brian. This to me, I don't think this is, I say this. Especially the small. It's taken a line, so we've got the friendship. Shadowing works for yourself. If more than that, you like lines that spend most of our lives trying not to whatever it is. Fighting these things for sorry.
Good enough. Wasting.
Fallibility, yes. I always talk about the shadow thing. It's necessary. It's not something that is giving food on the table for something, making sure that having structure of the artist is making sure that that's not necessarily it's not necessarily
Yeah, sure. Email. Email.
Says, keep silent in this crisis, relieve the deliverance, will help the news from another quarter while you and your father's house will bear. It's not just that, but it's okay. The rest of it doesn't. I can see it. You and your father's house.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I can see it as saying.
Yeah. All right, take about another minute and then we'll bring it back together, okay?
And I can do one item like that. I know I need the ones. I'm just afraid I'll screw it up and I don't want to screw up something that people are. Can I just do another? Sorry, there's one thing I forgot to write down.
All right, let me invite people to come back in, pull back your seats and let's consolidate. Thank your partner for being your study partner. Shh. Let's come back towards the middle if everyone would. The middle two sections. And let's move on up, okay, if you can. We'll be a little tighter up here. If you came in late and you didn't get a salmon color sheet, make sure you get it because you won't be able to follow this conversation without it, okay? So if you came in late and didn't get this, pick it up. It's on the table in the foyer. Ed, Ken, come on down. Warm us up here. So I wanted to say, because do we have only one mic, Matt, or two? Oh, if someone can help Matt, we'll cover the space, one side or the other, as people offer something. What I'll do is I'm going to ask people on each one of the questions, we'll take a few comments and then I'm going to weave them all together. Just for your own interest, I'll just give you the context of each text. So we're going to start with the first text, which is Pachad Yitzchak, which is actually a commentator, Rabbi Yitzchak Hunter, who's a 20th century Orthodox rabbi who was born in Warsaw, moved to Palestine in the 1920s, nearly was killed in the Hebron massacre of 1929, and then moved to the United States. And his commentaries on the Vilna Gaon, who of course lived in the 18th century in Lithuania, okay? So the question for the first one is, what does it mean to say that a holiday is half for God and half for you? So anyone who took question number one, what'd you come up with? What does it mean? His teaching here is that holidays are half for God and half for you. Debbie, the mic's gonna come to you.
Hi, I was talking with Danny, which I really appreciated. So the text sets up this dichotomy that someone said that Yom Kippur is just for God, and someone said that Purim is just for you. And we were trying to explore that. And we thought that maybe that was said because Yom Kippur is when the book of life is closed, and that seems like God's action. And then why is that said about Purim? Well, in short, it's a big party. So we think this text is ultimately challenging both those sort of extreme one position look at things, which we both agreed with. And in so many ways, Yom Kippur is very much part of the end of our reflection, and as much as part of us as for God. And Purim raises all these important issues about they didn't use the term, but the anti-Semitic, the beautiful wife sleeping with the king, that is another issue, and then the vengeance at the end. So neither story is cut and dry one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Nice, nice. We'll take one other comment on that first question, first text, please.
Do you need me to stand?
If you don't mind, we'd love to see you. And your name is?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kika. Obviously, this is my first time here visiting you guys. Thank you.
And we're so impressed that you're willing to share in your first visit. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so Marina and I, we were discussing the context of half God and half human. So basically, a lot of humanity, they tend to have this huge wall between God and humanity. Well, God can't be in that because that's humanity, or that's a human issue, and vice versa. But in actuality, it's us and him working together. Because when you look at Purim, for example, God is not mentioned. However, he's everywhere all the time, and he is in the joy. It is why we have joy. And then for Yom Kippur, you're thinking, okay, this is a time of reflection, which it is. However, he's more amplified because he's the core reason why we are atoning, because he takes all of that on. So when you put those two together, it's a joy because we're able to go to him to atone. So he's in the joyous occasions, and he's there when it's more somber and more reflective. So when he made earth, he said on earth as it is in heaven. So that in Genesis, so that means that we have our purpose here and our work here on earth. And that's the natural, and he's the supernatural. So when you put the supernatural and natural together, it's a holistic purpose.
Beautiful. Is it Kiga? I pronounced that right? Beautiful. Kiga, thank you. What I most love about what you said, Kiga, is the observation that even though God is not literally in the Purim story at all, there's no mention of God anywhere in Megillah Esther, okay? Kiga makes the observation God actually is everywhere in the story, right? And so we need to move out of our literal brains to kind of get the deeper meaning of what's going on in life. Because we tend to see things in very prosaic ways, very literal and linear ways, but actually the spiritual antenna that we're given, which is totally underutilized and underdeveloped, okay, tells us that you can't look at the world in that linear way. And that even though God is not mentioned literally, God's everywhere in the story. That's beautifully shared. Okay. One of the rabbinic notions that inform the Vilna Gaon teaching is the following. This gets to a little bit more of a Chanukki rabbinic approach. When they say that a holiday is for God, the rabbis are talking about prayer and study. And when they say a holiday is for humanity, for people, they're talking about eating and celebration. And the rabbis observe that most holidays have a mix of both. You know, what's a good holiday? Where there's some prayer and study, and there's a lot of eating and some celebration, and that's a nice mix. But the rabbis observe 2 holidays break the rule. Okay, Yom Kippur has nothing for people. Again, I'm talking linearly now. Okay, there's no food, and it's not really a celebration in any way. You don't say, by the way, Yom Kippur is the only holiday where you don't say Good Yom Tov. Good Yom Tov is the typical Yiddish or Hebrew way of saying a good day, a celebration, a special day. You don't say Good Yom Tov on Yom Kippur because it's not a celebration, okay? So Yom Kippur has none of that, okay? And on the other side of the coin, Purim has little study and little of the, prayer in the conventional sense, okay? Especially if you're drunk on Purim, you don't have to. So the rabbis say, here are the 2 exceptions to the rule, which is why this teaching leads into teaching number 2, okay? So the second text is from Midrash Mishlei. The Midrash written sometime in the 1st century, the Common Era is the Midrash, okay? And it's a Midrash on the book of Proverbs. Let's say 2 comments on that. The question here is, why would Yom Kippur and Purim be the 2 holidays in the Jewish calendar cycle to be exempt from the rule that all holidays would be nullified, meaning no longer observed in the future, presumably after the coming of the Messiah or the arrival of the Messianic era? Now, by the way, when I was putting together this text study, that was a new one for me. I wasn't even aware of this teaching that in the days of the Messiah, we essentially wiped the slate clean of all the holidays. Really interesting. And now it says 2 holidays break the rule. All holidays will be ended, nullified, but you still do Yom Kippur and Purim. So who talked about that and has an insight to share? Donald, wait for the mic for a moment.
So in a post-messianic world, we're talking about resurrection. And Yom Kippur is the holiday of atonement in part, I think. And so those who have been righteous get resurrected if they've atoned for their more minor sins. But the holiday of Purim tells the story of evildoers meeting bad ends. And I think that's what balances the 2 of these. People are either resurrected to everlasting life because they've been righteous, or they are condemned to either a nothingness or eternal condemnation for their evil acts. And this is the balance between the 2.
Nice. Second comment on that, second question about why Yom Kippur and Purim are exempt. Bob, please.
Hi, we were thinking about Yom Kippur and Purim and their general emotional qualities. And Yom Kippur is more of a somber, sort of sad day, and Purim more of a celebration. But after the Messiah comes, Yom Kippur would be a day of celebration. Because now, yes, good things have happened, and Purim, I think, is somewhat like, each year when we remember people we've lost. I think about my father who died, and his memory makes me happy. But, when there are times to say Kaddish for him, I remember the sadness. And the holiday of Purim is happy, but the end of the story is pretty brutal. And maybe we remember when we were bad.
Uh-huh. Nice, nice. Well, your sharing, Bob, actually is a beautiful segue into the third teaching, but we're not going to go there just yet because that's what the third teaching actually tackles. But I want to share a somewhat radical, perhaps Reconstructionist thought, if we can be kind about it. When I looked at this Midrash Mishlei, the second text at the bottom of the first page, it occurred to me that the following occurred to me, and this is like how I was trying to process the notion, well, why would we essentially get rid of all the holidays when the Messiah comes? And I think it actually suggests a radical thought, and that is that most of religion is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. And most of what people get wrong about religion is they think that religion is an end in itself, and so they raise it to the level of idolatry. You better do this just right. I was in a synagogue where my biggest memory of being raised in a right-wing conservative synagogue was that we read the entire Torah reading every week, and we had a Torah reader who was quite good, but when only he, in those days, would make a mistake, everyone would yell. And it was like, kind of like, what's going, like the meta message was so negative. You know, it wasn't a loving, you know, it's not a va, it's a va, you know, it wasn't a loving va, right? It was like, no, it's a va, you know? And like, so I've been thinking like, how come it didn't just drop to the floor at that point in time? But that's just a small example about when we raise religion, say, this is kind of it's got to be perfect. It's got to be just this way, and don't change one thing or else, you know, God will be angry at you. Is kind of like the worst face of religion. And there's a lot of that out there. Okay. But here, and I always want to be cautious about trying to read too much of my own theology into the rabbis. I don't think they were Reconstructionists, but I do think there are elements of the teachings that you can kind of bring out. This is kind of saying like, the fact of the matter is, the holidays and all Judaism, all Jewish practice is meant to bring us to some perfect place that we call the Messianic era. Once that's done, the means fall by the wayside because we're in a perfect place. What a beautiful teaching that might be, right? What a beautiful teaching that really is, okay? Now, here's the other side of that coin. Maybe the little, you know, if they say that every cloud has a silver lining, it may be that every silver lining has some cloudiness to it, okay? And that is to say that the Messianic era, actually, we're in danger of being very, very bored. Think about that. We have the danger of being very, very bored because everything's been perfected for us. There's nothing left for us to do, right? I mean, the essential teaching of Judaism is that we're partners with God in the creation and the repair of the world. It's like we're constantly being given agency to do something in the world because God can't and won't do it alone. That's core to rabbinic Judaism even, okay? That's not just even Mordechai Kaplan and Reconstructionism, okay? In the Messianic era, like, you know, it's like just, don't take offense if you got a condo in Miami, but it's kind of like just being at the beach every day, sitting in the sun. Like, well, yeah. So Vicky says, maybe like the Garden of Eden, okay? So there's a symmetry to the Torah in the sense that we start out in a perfect place and we're going to a perfect place. And between those two perfect places, we're living in what's called the Midbar, a wilderness, which is very complicated, very confusing. There's a lot of good, a lot of bad, and you got to figure it out, okay? And it's damn hard to figure that out every day, okay? But that's what life's challenge is. And religion, when it works well, gives us some tools to help figure that out and navigate it, right? So that's the meta model that we're working within, right? And I think this teaching actually raises that up. Let's go to the third teaching. So this is from the Zohar. The Zohar was put together over 3 centuries in Spain between 1100 and 1400 when the Zohar is written. It is the core text of Jewish mysticism. A lot of that has been tapped in recent years because of the revival and interest in Jewish mystical teaching. And the question is, the Zohar itself speculates about why the rabbis seem obsessed with connecting Yom Kippur and Purim, two of the most opposite kind of holidays you can ever come up with, okay? So what's the Zohar's suggestion as to why? So let's get 2 comments on that. Any pairs that talked about question number 3? Any volunteers? Go ahead, Vicky.
I studied with Noah Baum, who actually had more to say on the poor part of both words that I don't really understand, and she had to go read to children, so
Uh-huh.
might want to ask her another time. But we felt that Purim and Yom Kippur have a natural yin and yang, that one is very solemn and one is very joyous. And yet there's joyous parts of both, as our guests also mentioned, and that that they would be turned on their head, that the Purim, the joy of Purim would also be brought to the joy of Yom Kippur in future times. And then we looked at the wearing of shoes and as an example of that where we don't wear shoes now, it says to enjoy the footsteps of sandals. So you would wear shoes. And we went into a whole conversation about leather shoes, but because we felt that was an important piece, that people wouldn't have had any shoes at all. So there's also an equalizing across peoples, that you have on Yom Kippur, everybody is the same. And then Purim, everybody is the same also. That was our yin and yang.
Lovely. Very nice. Very nice. Stacy, second question, second comment on this. Yeah, please.
So Joanna and I talked about this, and we wound up focusing on something that is similar to Vicky and Noah, but a little bit different. So we were talking about the joy that can come on Yom Kippur from kind of starting again, right? Like, okay, and maybe you know that you're going to not stop gossiping or doing any of the things that you pledge to do, but it's a fresh start, and there's always joy in a fresh start. And we actually thought, like, really, why can't we approach Yom Kippur more joyfully? And we didn't actually talk about this, but I remember a few times when we have sung melodies at Yom Kippur or sang, other songs that were a little bit more joyful than your typical liturgy, and there was controversy about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like we can even bring joy into solemn moments, just like, and this is where it's very similar, you can also bring solemnity to joyful moments, because again, Purim is about a lot of really awful things.
Mhm.
So my real takeaway is maybe that in the Zohar, it's sort of urging us to have a more measured approach to each holiday rather than really making them totally binary.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I'll add to those two beautiful comments the following thought, and I'll plead guilty to the accusation that I get really tired and annoyed by religion's obsession with small questions, and I keep wanting to ask the biggest possible question I can come up with, okay? So the biggest question that I ask myself about the Zohar is, it says, I think this is a lesson about what is the business of religion. And it's a one-word answer, and that answer is transformation, both external and internal, okay? So what it's saying is, what the Zohar is enchanted by the juxtaposition between Yom Kippur and Purim is because if you believe in the power of religion to transform the world and yourself, your soul, your own being, and the way you see the world, both at the same time, okay? And those things are interlinked. Then the power is so great that it could turn Yom Kippur into a Purim. You can take the most solemn holiday and make it into the most joyous holiday, right? And that's just an example of what happens when religion actually works. You have that kind of transformation happening before your very eyes, okay? So I just love that, hint in this teaching from the Zohar as a possibility. So the last one is actually from the book of Esther itself. And by the way, I shouldn't skip over the fact that here in the Zohar, they give you the exact reason why the rabbis are obsessed with the juxtaposition. Yom Kippur is the day where Yom Kippur is a day like Purim, okay? Literally, if you translate Yom HaKippurim, can be read as the day that is like Purim, which is like, you can sit there and like scratch your head for like an hour, like, yeah, like, tell me how. I can't figure that out. But that's what this whole study session is about, right? Okay, so the last section is from Book of Esther itself, which is written actually probably the latest book of the Bible, just makes it under the wire. A lot of rabbis say we shouldn't include it at all because God's not mentioned. The point that Keegan made beautifully before. The fact that God's not mentioned, the rabbi said, why would we include the book of Esther It's like, no, this is not even a real book, but it got in, okay? Anyway, so written probably sometime between 400 to 200 before the Common Era, okay? It's probably when it's written, okay? And there's also controversy about how much is based on an historical episode or not. I'm not going to go there right now, but the passage itself is quite powerful. So who's looked at the fourth one and it's got something to share? Ralph, go ahead.
Yeah, as we were discussing this, we actually read it as, you know, if you have your identity and you stick out, you're at risk. But also, if you go the other way and you try to pass and you try to assimilate, you're also gonna die. And this basic tension between when do you duck down and when do you try to really assert your identity, especially, it has special relevance to this culture now, where so much of what happens is because other people on the sidelines are silent. So somebody gets bullied because one other person happens to have that, and then the other 90% of the people around just don't speak up. And so we picked up on that tension between, identity, being out there, not suppressing it, and then also that you can die in a lot of different ways. You can just not be yourself in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, nice. I want to come back to that comment in a minute. I think one other commentary on that fourth question, fourth text. Someone else study it? Ira, please.
What struck us, I spoke with Vicky, is the last phrase, perhaps you attained the royal position for just such a crisis. And I think about living a comfortable life that I know I do and all of us do, and there is a lot of hurting going on. And maybe that's a call to the opportunity, to take the opportunity to say, it's been comfortable for me, maybe I need to step up and engage more.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, I'm going to come back to Ira's comment. One of the things that got triggered by Ralph's comment, I want to say first, we know that we are in a very difficult time, and if you followed the news from this week, not only have we had months and months of growing anti-Semitic behavior and actions, both locally and nationally in the world, but a couple of these fringe groups put out a press release about 8 days ago saying that today is the day of hate, right? I don't know if people saw that or not. I was joking to Sandy and my wife, I'm sure that'll only take a week for Hallmark to create a card, send your loved one a card for the day of hate, right? Whatever. And the fact of the matter is, I don't want, there's something between being alarmist and being totally dismissive. And I think we got to find ourselves between them. The fact of the matter is that 99% of these things are just ways for fringe groups to get publicity, which succeeded yet again. Okay, thank you, media. So they play these things up and it makes everyone crazy. And there's a lot of overreaction to these things, which is not helpful at all. But it does raise the question about, when do you simply let it pass and when do you stand up? Okay, not a simple question to be answered in this moment. And we're not going to go more there, but it's in our environment right now and on our minds. So I just wanted to kind of name that. But clearly what Ira studied with Vicky kind of raises a beautiful thing. This last line of verse 14 in the book of Esther is very, very powerful. And it's a line that is probably the most classic line, I would even say paradigmatic line about human agency in the entire literature of the Jewish people, okay? Perhaps for this moment, you were created. Just think about that for a second. Perhaps for this moment, you were created. Think about if you type that out in a nice font on your computer and put that on your refrigerator or your mirror, whatever you look at most often. TV, I don't know. I'll leave that to you. No confessions here. No confessions here. The thing you look at most often, and just reflect every day on that one phrase. Perhaps for this moment you were created, and what that brings up in you, what that raises up in you, and the way that challenges you, how that might change what you do. I did a course some years ago here at Adat Shalom on Musar literature, and I had a worksheet for each midah, each attribute, soul trait that we're trying to incorporate. And it was called choice points. And the exercise between each week was to come up with a situation you confronted during the week where you had a choice point. You could either do A or B, and how the midah might give you some direction about the path to take. Okay, that's how I structured the class. Okay, and it's for those choice points. It's for those paths, crossroads in the pathways in the road. We have, you can go this direction or this direction, that you think about this phrase, perhaps for this moment you were created, in which case you go this way, the path less taken, goes to the more comfortable way, maybe going to the left, right? So this teaching, I want to kind of like end this beautiful collective sharing. So you got a lot of insights from studying with your partner and a lot of the beautiful sharings that were done in the community as a whole. I want to conclude it by sharing just one teaching that I benefited from the past few weeks. I joined about a month ago a national fellowship under the auspices of a group called Hadar, which is based in New York. That's doing a lot of great Jewish learning and teaching. And they invited people to apply to be in a fellowship to study with Rabbi Irving Greenberg, known as Rav Yitz, who is an Orthodox rabbi who's now approaching his 90th birthday. And Yitz Greenberg was a very big influence on me in my life, a mentor, someone with whom I worked closely with back in the 80s, actually, and is one of the Gadol and one of the greats of our generation in many ways. And he, believe it or not, in his 80s, he's written another book, which is not out yet, called The Triumph of Life. And this fellowship is essentially sitting with Yitz and studying this new book with him. And he actually had a teaching about this issue of Purim, and it relates to his concept of the 3 eras of Jewish history, the 3 eras or eras of Jewish history. I say era because otherwise it sounds like a baseball error, like the ball went through the shortstop's legs and it's an error, okay? So the 3 eras of Jewish history, okay? Not the 3 errors of your softball team. So the first is the biblical era, second, the rabbinic era, and the third, he simply calls the 3rd era, okay? And here's how he characterizes it theologically. In the first era, God is totally interventionist, okay? God has the power. I think he used the word supernatural. God is a supernatural power, a being in the universe. This is the biblical belief. And God can suspend the laws of nature, stop the sun from setting, split the Red Sea, bring the dead back to life. You name it, God can do it, okay? And God, and by the way, and God has no qualms about doing it. That seems to be God's job profile, his job description in the biblical era, okay? By the rabbinic era, you have God doing what's called in theological language, self-limiting. Now, why that term? Because the rabbis believe that God can do anything God wants, okay? I'm going to try and avoid the gendered pronouns here, okay? That God can do anything God wants, okay? So it's not that God has gotten a little older and so he's a little less able, okay? That's not what's happening. But God has made the decision to self-limit for some larger purpose, okay? That God comes to the realization that if God continues to be that interventionist, it would rob humanity of the agency that they would need to become better human beings, okay? And the classic story in the rabbinic era is the story of Achnai's oven, a story that some of you may have learned at some point. It's from Baba Batra, I think. No, Baba Metzia, 59, if you want to look it up this afternoon, okay? And the story is about an argument that rabbis have about a very minute piece of trivia, which religions and rabbis love to obsess over, about whether a given oven is kosher or not. This is what the rabbis spend a lot of time worrying about, okay? And they're arguing back and forth, and one team of rabbis believe it is kosher, the other it's not kosher. And in the end, one of the rabbis starts to invoke miracles to prove that they're right, okay? And they make different things happen in the world, you know, and they make a tree bend and a building fall, whatever else. And then a voice comes from heaven that says, stop with the miracle games, okay? The Torah, and clearly the passage suggesting the voice is the voice of God coming from heaven saying, and the voice of God says, the Torah is not in heaven. It's like, whoa, Like the Torah is not, and I remember classically, the rabbi said, God gave a Torah at Mount Sinai and it's all God's word. It's all from heaven. So now in the rabbinic era, you've got the rabbis writing, because God's not writing the Talmud, it's written by rabbis. You have a rabbi saying, putting the words in the mouth of God, the Torah is not in heaven, which is the self-limiting part of God now. And suddenly, like, you guys have to figure this out. I'm not going to intervene. I'm not going to make a miracle happen. I'm not going to give you a sign. Okay. Figure it out. It's your job. So you have this movement from God running the whole show, God is puppet master, to God is around, but like it's up to us, right? In the third era, and this is now Rabbi Yitz's teaching, so I do it in his name. Rabbi Yitz would say that the third era begins with the Shoah, the Holocaust, and the birth of the state of Israel. That marks the third era. And you may well know that in the 70s, you have a whole movement around what's called the death of God. Okay, there's some major books written about it. It's on the cover of Life magazine, God is Dead. In the Jewish world, a book written by Richard Rubenstein called After Auschwitz was the Jewish analog to the God is Dead movement. Okay, essentially it was the response, and by the way, it took 30 years or 20 years for the world to, and thinkers and theologians to kind of like assimilate the notion about what the Holocaust was all about and what does it mean. And so for Richard Rubenstein, he says, a world in which you believe that God has the power to intervene in whatever God wants to intervene in, and that allows the Holocaust to happen, simply tells us that there's no God. That's Richard Rubenstein, right? Yitz is not going there, okay? Yitz wants to affirm God, and he would argue that in the third era, God is present in the universe, but all moral agency is left to human beings, okay? If the Holocaust happened, it's because we allowed political systems to emerge and evolve in such a way that we allowed a demagogue like Hitler to rise to power and to almost take over all of Europe and wipe out the Jewish people off the face of the earth. You know, it's a human failure, okay? And he would make an analog, by the way, I think informed by the fact that he himself has survived cancer. He says at this point in time, and this is, I'm almost quoting him directly because it's so powerful from an Orthodox rabbi. He says, in this point in time, we need to say that more important than saying a Misha Berach, a prayer for healing in synagogue, is to fund medical science to come up with cures for illnesses, right? Now, he's not saying don't say the Misha Berach, but he says if you got to weigh the two, okay, funding medical science is more important because that's going to actually come up with cures that will keep people alive longer. And the Misha Berach may be good for the soul and for the moment, but in the long view, if we can find a cure for cancer or Parkinson's or you name the disease, okay, that is a step forward, okay? And he uses that as an explanation about saying how we move from a world in which we totally depend on God for everything to a world in which we have total human agency, which brings us back to the Yom Kippur Purim spectrum, okay? So we begin with Yom Kippur where we say, we ask God forgiveness, first people we've offended, and then God for forgiveness. So we have another year of life, and we believe literally in the liturgy of the Yom Kippur that God has the power over our living another year or dying in that year, right? That's the interventionist model. All the way to Purim, where we have this great line that Ira spoke to before, okay? Perhaps for this moment you were created. Don't sit back and like just do a prayer. For this moment, you were created to make something happen, okay? And this is about human agency. And in the end, what Judaism has taught from its infancy is that level of human agency, that we believe that there's a greater power in the universe that has a design, but that is really up to us because for this moment, we were created. Shabbat Shalom. We'll invite our guys to come up. And first reader. Thank you.
ויעזור ויגן וישל לכל הארצים בואו ונאמר אמן. הכל הגודל עליהם תתנו כבוד לתורה. תעמוד שלי סדרסקי, שר הבא העלייה הראשונה. ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו, ואתם הדבקים בנעליכם, חיים כולכם היום. The first aliyah today. The first aliyah today will be on page 545, if you have the revised version of the Chumash. That's the one with the picture on the cover, and page 604, if you have the original version of it. It's the one without the picture on the cover. In either one, we're in Shemot, Exodus chapter 25, verse 1.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach. Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam, asher kirvanu lavodato v'notan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ויקחו לי תרומה מאת כל איש אשר ידבנו ליבו, תיקחוהו את תרומתי, וזאת התרומה אשר תיקחוהו מאיתם, זהב וכסף ונחושת, ותכלת בארגמן, בתולעת שני ושש ועזים, ואורות אלים מאודמים, ואורות תחשים, ועצי שיטים. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Shalom. Stacy Foyer, Sarah Bat Chaim Rachel Aliyah Hashniya. Yes. You're reading, she read one that you already did, or that you're going to do, right? You're starting with 5 or 6? 5. Okay, so we'll do it again. Okay, so we are going to continue with verse 5, which we just heard once. It's good. We're going to hear it a second time.
Not as well as the first time.
We'll be the judge of that. right?
We'll be the judge. Okay. We're still on the same pages. Take a seat.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach. Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher karavanu lavodato, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Va'arot elim ha'adamim, va'arot ha'chashim, va'atzei shetim, shaman la'amor, pasamim l'shem hamishtach, hamishach v'lichtarot, pasamim, avnei shehem shaham v'avnei miluim, la'afod v'lahoshen,
Yeah, sorry.
ויצולי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
At this moment, we'll invite those who would like to say Misha Barach for themselves or for a loved one who's ill to come forward and to stand in front of the bima. And this doesn't take away from the fact that we want to help fund medical research. We'll invite people to share the names if you so choose.
Anna Elna Revanala Anna Elna Revanala Elna Revanala Revanalo Anna Elna Evanala Anna Elna Revanalo Anna Elna Revanala Elna Revanalo. Refuah Shlema.
Wishing you and your loved ones a refuah shlema, a full and speedy recovery.
Appropriate. We are skipping ahead to the Maftir reading, which will be on page 552 if you have the revised version, or 611 if you have the original. We're on chapter 27, verse 17. And it will be called.
Where now?
Hold on, what?
Cholamodei.
What chapter? It was 27.
This is rated at,
What's the sheet of handed out? 17. Holiday.
it's rated, it's gonna be versus later, it's gonna be, there's a break.
If you didn't get to all of those 4 questions before, you can work on them some more.
Yeah, very well.
Oh, there we are. Great.
Back in the wrong place. Okay.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kervanu La'avodato V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen.
כל עמודי החצר סביב מחושקים כסף, בביהם כסף, ועדניהם נחושת, אורך החצר 100 ורוחב 50 וקומה 500 מושסר, ואדוניהם נחושת לכל כלי המשכן, בכל עבודתו ובכל יתידותיו ובכל יתידות החוצר נחושת.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yamod Natwal Tamagbia V'Yamod Ted Berman Hagolel. Please rise as you are able when the Torah is lifted.
Zot HaTorah Asher Sa Moshe B'nei Yisrael. Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. Morasha Kehilad Yaakov, Morasha Kehilad Yaakov, Morasha Kehilad Yaakov, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. May be seated. So I want to just invite you, just before we put the Torah back, I want you to invite you to open your Bible up one more time. I know you put it away. Chapter 25, verse 8, Exodus, okay? It's on page 545 or 604, depending on whether you've got the old or the new. So before we start doing the text study, I made mention of this verse, but I want to just raise it up one more time before we put the Torah away, because it'll be a whole year until we have this as our text for the morning, okay? And that is verse 8, which is the beautiful verse. V'yasu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. I will make for them, or have them make for me, a sanctuary so that I may dwell among them or within them, okay? So a lot of you, we've sung in this sanctuary before the following song. I want to invite you to join with me. And Cheryl, I need your help here, okay? It goes like this, and this is inspired by this one verse. So oftentimes we have these great, lovely melodies, and we don't know where they're sourced, where they come from. This comes from here, where it goes like this. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and in thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Try it. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and in thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. We'll be returning the Torah to the Ark and honoring Amy Dick to come up and help us. Page 433, please rise.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו. ושמיים וירם כליהו. תלכו עשית
לבני ישראל אמרו, Hallelujah. 435. Havul Adonai b'nei Elim, Havul Adonai kavod va'os, Havul Adonai kavod shemo, Hishtachavul Adonai behadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arze halvanon. Kol Adonai choteful havodesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yacholel ayalot. Adonai lamabul yashav, Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Page 441.
עץ חיים היא למחזיקים וצורכיה מרושם דרן וכל נתיבותיך שלום. שירי אליי שובה, חדש ימינו
May be seated. So during this year, people who are, more regular than not will be aware that we've had to go deep on our bench with Rabbi Cantor Rachel's absence, and we have a deep bench. So every week someone else is leading and davening. This week, some of our bench is away. And because I was on the Bima assigned for this week, I had to find a Cantor. Unfortunately, Cheryl was available, and Cheryl's been part of the musical team for a long time. So when we started playing the service, I said, well, during this Musaf, period, there's always like an offering, something musical in lieu of the musaf that the reconstructionists took out of the Siddur. And Cheryl said, well, I'm not sure what I have, whatever else. And we chatted more. And then she says, I wrote like a poem and some music for one Parsha, and I think it's this Parsha. Now, like, how did that happen? Amazing. So it just so happens that I'm on the bima. Cheryl's guy is my partner on the bima, co-leading. And she's written this piece originally, which is essentially a midrash on the Parsha of Truma, which she wrote some time ago, which she's going to offer this morning as our Musaf moment.
Sorry, while I arrange things a little. And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Exactly as I will show you, so shall you make it. And thou shalt make 2 cherubim of gold. The cherubim shall spread out their wings on high, with their faces one to another. So God tells us to make him a sanctuary. Every detail, the materials, the color of the cloth, the width and breadth of every element are here. Then set up the tabernacle according to the manner of that which you were shown on the mountain. As you were shown on the mountain, so shall they be made. Now the creative types in the tribe may feel a little bit discouraged at being told every dimension of this holy place. There is no room here to be struck by inspiration, no permission to go wild, throw paint at a canvas, spread across the floor and see what happens. No room to improvise if you can't quite recall the manner of it that you were shown on the mountain. The sanctuary begins with a bed of clover and a clear blue sky, or it begins by a soft running stream on a hot rock with a light rain just beginning to fall. My sanctuary is in the eyes of those I love, or will love once I get to know them a little bit more. It is in the feeling of grace when I gain understanding of something about life that feels mysterious until the time when it no longer hides its meaning. So tell me, where is yours? Is it by the red rocks of a canyon, or by the highest story of a building that scrapes the sky? Is it in the heart of a perfect harmony, sung in clear voices, or is it in the warmth of a baby wrapped in sleep in your arms? Take a minute, I implore you. Let go just for now of the next item on your agenda. Let go of worries, let go of time. Hold in the eye of your mind, the eye of your imagination, this holy place of your creation. Let the breeze that brushes your face be the one of your revelations. Let the sounds you hear be ones of comfort and tenderness. Just for now, let the world spin on its axis without pressing your shoulder to the ground to urge it along. I stand in my sanctuary, wings spread out on high, facing you in yours, one by one, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart, wing to wing. In between the arguments and analyses, in between the sleepless nights and dire predictions, may we remember to fill the world with resolutions of beauty, fill the world with a resolve of compassion, and fill the world with a memory of song.
So beautiful, Cheryl. Thank you so much for, you bring so much beauty and soul to this community. Thank you. We'll invite everyone to rise for the Alenu, page 445. Alenu l'shabeach ladon hakol, la tekedu la liotzer breshit, shenatan lanu Torah emet, v'chaye olam nata b'tocheinu, ve'ananu kolim, v'tavim umodim, l'fnei Malchei Hamlokim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shel noten shamayim ve'oser
Aretz u'moshe yikaro b'shamayim imal, u'shchina tuzo, v'gavei meromi, im hu Eloheinu Eloheinu, emet malkeinu v'sulato, Karatu v'toratu, Yedata, Yedata, V'ashevota, Elevata, Ki Adonai Hu Elohim, Ashamayim Ima, V'yaretz Mi'ata, Einod, Einod. Page 449 at the bottom. Yamachut shecha hilo me'atim lo b'chavod. Kakatu b'dorotecha. Na'yim lo ve'olam va'ed.
V'nefem ma ve'adonai le'melech kol
ha'aretz.
v'yom
V'yom Yeh Adonai Shema, Shema, Shema. May be seated. We take these next few minutes to remember those in our community who have passed away and mark the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of deaths that happened in the past. So we recall with love and memory the death of Phil Burnell, our dear member, Joyce Dopkine, the sister of Leslie Dopkine, and Clarissa Jones Parker Leonard, the mother of Catherine Grossman. We mark the yahrzeits of the following: Ida Weinstein, the mother of Julia Tossell, Rosalie Handler, the mother of Jane Handler, Daniel Glass, the father of Julie Glass, Shep Franklin, the father of Gila Siegel, Yaakov Weisberger, father of Hannah Weisberger, Erwin Weinstein, the father of Elise Kaplan, Alfred Kalfus, the father of Suzanne Kalfus, Jenny Shortek, the grandmother of Bob Barkin, Mayor Fenig, the father of Gail Fisher, Naomi Perez Epstein, the mother of Judith Perez, Daniel Roth, the uncle of Deborah Basilis, Rose Cantor, the mother of Ken Cantor, Audrey Samet, the grandmother of Dawn Levinson, Mary Tech, the grandmother of Lauren Amdursky, Edith Abramowitz, the mother of Ira Abrams, David Weintraub, the father of Jeff Weintraub, Paula Silver, the mother of Mark Silver, Ernest Glass, the father of Jackie Glass, Sheila Trapp, the mother of Deborah Trapp, Helen Babin, the mother of Nechama Babin, Toby Perez, the father of Judith Perez, Burton Rudin, the father of Betsy Turetsky, Samuel Roth, the grandfather of Deborah Basilis, Vivian Kravitz, the mother of Sandy Brody, Bernard Abraham, the father of Jesse Abraham, Samuel Chortek, the uncle of Robert Barkin, Jerome Cuff, the father of Lori Persh, G. Jack Ostheimer, the father of Michael Ostheimer, Edward Isaacson, the father of Stephen Isaacson, Frances Kleinman, the grandmother of Ellie Kleinman and the mother of Ted Kleinman, and Mildred Quain, the mother of Estelle Quain. We invite all those saying Kaddish to rise for the Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 451. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bioma, Divrach, Hirutei, Biomlich Malchutei, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayed Kol Beit Yisrael, V'galat Uvizman Kari V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach L'Olam Omel Maya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei D'Kudesha, B'richu. Leila Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbagata B'nechemata, Tamiran B'yama V'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Ben Ramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael, V'yakol Yishvei Tevel, V'imru Amen. So just in time, Ellie, would you just guide all the kids up here so they can sit up in front, right in front of the bima, okay? I'm going to call Ann Spielberg up to make some announcements for the congregation. So invite all the kids to come up on the floor in front of the bima, if you would, okay? That's a special place for you. Parents can sit up there with their kids if they want. It's new carpeting, so you're not going to get dirty. It's great. I don't want to, so you have to compete with the So precisely because a Shabbat morning service should have moments of poignancy, it should want to kind of like just raise up that it's not a coincidence that on the heels of saying the Mourner's Kaddish, they remember those who have passed away, both recently and in the past, that we are greeted by our future, by our children from the school. We're going to be with us here at the end of the service. So welcome everyone from the Torah School. Hi all. And we're going to invite Ann Spielberg to make some announcements about what's coming up. And then hopefully Ben Pagliaro is coming in. Ben, come on up, Ben.
Shabbat Shalom and a special welcome to anyone who's visiting us today. I also want to extend thanks to Rabbi Sid for his leading the service and his beautiful teaching today, and to Cheryl for being the Tefillah leader. Thank you. So highlights of some upcoming events this weekend. Tomorrow in person from 3 to 5, there will be the first of 3 sessions on jazz appreciation with Adat Shalom member Paul Feldman. And then tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m. on Zoom will be a climate legislation virtual briefing. Next weekend, we have a lot of great events. We start on Friday, March 3rd at 6 p.m. with our regular First Friday Kabbalat Shabbat program. Rabbi Chazan Rachel will be joining our wonderful regular musicians and leaders for the service, followed by Spanish food, desserts from our member and baker, Elta Goldstein, and a post-dinner Sephardic sing-along in Ladino with Susan Gaeta. So please register by this coming Tuesday. On Sunday, March 5th, we begin our Purim festivities for all ages. We start with a carnival at 4 with games, crafts, snacks, and fun, followed by dinner at 5:30, a costume parade at 6:15, and then a bit of Megillah, followed by the Purim spiel. Then on Monday, March 6th at 7, we will have the Megillah reading with Rabbi Chazan Rachel, Ken Avner, Jeff Weintraub, and more, and a party afterwards. And if you've not done so already, there is still time to send personalized Purim greetings to friends. Deadline is the end of the day this coming Tuesday. We hope many of you can join us for these events. You should bring your friends. More information, links, sign up details are in Hashavua. We look forward to everyone joining us at the Oneg following services. Thank you to Kim Bayard and Brian Cox for captaining. And if you have not done so already, please consider signing up to help with future Onegs. It's fun and it's a great way to meet other members or to reconnect with those you already know. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. I have one more announcement. There is a lecture series that BAF that Adat Shalom is a co-sponsor of, and tomorrow evening at 7:30 at B'nai Israel, there's going to be a what we call a big event lecture on the Babylonian exile, the return, and the beginning of Judaism. So 7:30 tomorrow night at B'nai Israel.
And pray tell, what is BAF, Donald, for everyone who doesn't know?
Biblical Archaeology Forum.
Of course, we knew that. Biblical Archaeology Forum. We want to take a moment, keep the mics in the audience for a second. Wait a second. Our custom here at Adat Shalom is to invite guests to stand up and introduce themselves so we know who you are and where you're from, so we can greet you properly at our Oneg. So if you are visiting for the first time or recently, don't be shy. There are a lot of you, so we invite you to stand. This week, in fact, we know that they're visiting people for the religious school as well. So we'll bring the mic around and let you introduce yourselves. If you're in that category, stand up if you're new.
Hi, my name is Emily and we're visiting from Silver Spring. And this is my husband, Guilherme.
Welcome. Good to have you here. Go ahead.
Good morning again, everybody. My name is, you can call me Kika, but my full name is Bukika, and I am visiting from Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Great. First time. Welcome, Kiga. Good to have you here. Please.
Shachak and
Michelle, also from Silver Spring.
Welcome. Good to have you here. Welcome.
Hi, Josh and Leah Rabinowitz with Wes and Julian visiting from Durwood today.
Durwood, welcome. Good to have you here. In the back.
Howard Rock, my wife Ellen, visiting from Brevard, North Carolina.
Okay, up from North Carolina. Pass the mic this way to the right. To the right.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm Lisa Wishman, and I'm visiting all the way from Washington, D.C.
Welcome, Lisa. Good to have you here. Please.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm visiting all the way from Chevy Chase.
Okay. Hi, Alex. We're going to go over here. Shelley, this is your workout now. Okay, we're going to put on a stopwatch, Shelley, see how fast you are. Oh, it's a relay race. Don't drop the baton, Matt.
Good morning and good Shabbos. My name is Stu Levy and my son Zane in the front, and we're visiting from Bannockburn, Bethesda, close by.
Great. Good to have you here. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. This is my husband Clayton and our daughter Rosalie. We're visiting from Cabin John, Maryland.
Rosalie, where are you, Rosalie? Raise your hand, Rosalie. Hi, Rosalie. There's your mom and dad. Good. Anyone else? Ralph, please.
I just want to add that a week from Sunday for the Purim spiel, unlike the giving of the commandments at Sinai, you have to be there. There's not going to be any Zoom. Okay, so we want the energy in the house. This is your time to let loose. It'll be a whole lot of fun.
Okay, great. Any other announcements? Please, Mike at the back, Matt. If you didn't get up initially, there's still time to announce yourself. Please, who are you? Mark?
Thank you. Hi, I'm also Rebecca from Cabin John.
Rebecca what? Rebecca, your last name?
Oh, sorry, Mavora. I'm sure everyone can remember that one since it's Hebrew.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
And
Oh,
You have a child here?
yeah, I have two twins, boys, Joseph and Leo.
Joseph, Leo, could you raise your hands? Wave. Okay, we're gonna do a really good song. Come on up here for the song, okay? Because we need you, all the kids up here.
Yeah, I tried to get them.
You want to come on up with the kids?
Okay, let's
Why don't you come up with them, with your kids? One more over here, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I can't wait for Purim.
You can't wait for Purim, and neither can I. Neither can I, okay. So if you have kids, we want all the kids to come up in the front. Do you want to introduce yourself? Come on up, okay? So how many people were here for 2 years ago for our music Shabbaton? Who was here for Josh Warshawski? Who remembers that? Raise your hands, okay? So Josh taught us a song, which when Lauren Beal told me that there were going to be some visiting families with young kids and stuff, I thought that this would be a great song to do. And I called Ben, who is kind of the music man for our Torah school. And I said, you know, Josh Warshawski's Magalu. He says, yeah, let's do it. And he says the kids will actually know it. So on the back of the handout you got on the way in, not the salmon one, but the white one, you know, the words from Magalu. And it's from the morning part of the service. And it means, how great are your deeds, God, all of them you have made with wisdom. The earth is full of your creation and your creatures. Yes. Okay. And it comes with hand motions. Okay. So we're going to invite Ben to come up, and we want the kids to stand up because you know these hand motions, and you're going to teach the adults, and then the adults are going to be doing as well. And once you get one practice round, the adults are going to stand as well. Okay. So why don't you teach it first? Because the adults are a little rusty, even those who were here for Josh.
It's been a few years, huh?
Yeah.
So the first part is just an opportunity for us to shout out the words Marabu. So I'll sing it, and then you shout it back to me. Ready? Marabu. Oh yeah, Marabu. And then we sing it. Marabu ma'asecha Adonai. Let's sing it. Marabu ma'asecha Adonai. Okay, then the motions. We say kulam, everything. Kulam, and we're trying not to hit your neighbor when you say kulam. Bechochma, with wisdom. Bechochma asita. You created everything with wisdom. So
okay, I want to remind the adults are going to be tested on this. So adults need to do this too, because you're going to be standing up in a moment. Okay, get your practice in.
So it goes like this. Kulam bechochma asita. Try with me. Kulam bechochma asita. Kulam bechochma. You got it. Asita. Again. Kulam bechochma asita. And then we point to the creation. I was told while we were singing the song that it's snowing outside. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So we can point to all the creation all around us, even within our space. We point. Okay, just like this. Marabu. Get ready to shout it out. Marabu. Marabu. Now we sing it. Marabu ma'asecha Adonai. Shout it out. Let's say it. Marabu. Marabu. Marabu ma'asecha Adonai. I think we're ready to get on.
Okay, so now kids, the adults have not had as much practice as you've had. So I'm going to ask the kids to face that way so you can teach the adults. And the adults, I'm going to ask you to stand up now. And we're going to do the song with Ben, and the kids are going to show us the way, but we're all going to do the motions, okay?
Here we go. It's it. Adonai kulam, kulam bechokma asita, kulam bechokma asita, kulam bechokma asita. Point to the creation. Oh, yes. Last time, make it count. כולם בחוכמה עשית, כולם בחוכמה עשית, כולם בחוכמה עשית.
Let's give it up for the kids. Great job, kids. Very good. Almost in a minute, okay? Okay, remain standing for the Kiddush. Cheryl, and we'll invite all the kids to come up to the Bima, okay? Come on up, Sid. Okay, come over back here. Page 465 in the prayer book. Our Kiddush, not yet, we'll get that soon. in a minute. First the wine, then the challah, okay?
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותיו ולדורות בני ישראל כי ששת ימים מצא את השמיים ואת יום אשר שבת ונפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותיו ישראל ששת ימים את השמיים ואת יום אשר שבת ונפש על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו סברי חבריי
לחיים.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן.
I'm going to ask all the kids to join me on the steps here from Kala. You're going to touch the step from Kala, and everyone's going to be ready for my call. Remember, I'm going to leave
Thanks to God for bread. As our joy. But the hinder melancholy. See Maya Pehayo Shabbat Shalom Pehayo Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Bars, just a few.
Whistle music, please.
Yeah, last night, Barbara, yeah. So I'm thinking it's okay, it started, but. She had to be a little this morning, she called the Uber there, it was like, is for Uber there? And the Uber there.
This is enough to like, what you have to wait for us.
Fair, but this morning was lovely. I mean, Noah Baum is just, she's incredible. She's truly amazing. She really is. Seeing her doing really inspiring. It's just wonderful. Sometimes I spend time with big folks like that. And I'm like, it just sort of inspires me to raise the bar for myself.
I mean, I did a reading. I mean, I've been, on Tuesday nights, I write these drashes every week. And I did a midrash on one of the music today, and when I hear her voice in my head, her timings.
Guess we can turn our sound on now.
And how she says something.
Say hi, Shabbat Shalom, Barb and Steve, regulars.
Shabbat
Shalom.
I
will. You can see your baby, your granddaughter more than your head, Steve. You probably can see that. Your head is cut off. That's great. That's better than the stars, right?
Yeah, there we go. I have one in a little NASA onesie. And unfortunately, I have trouble cropping the picture for background. Every time I import a picture from my photos, it zooms in inappropriately for some reason.
Yeah, no, it looks good. Wow.
Hey, by the way, after I posted we should send the chats to Shauna. Rena texted me on my phone and said that they always look at the chat.
Oh, they do? Oh, good.
They do.
Okay.
So that's good.
That's right. I guess it's just so many things going on right now. They just quite not getting a handle on us Zoomers properly.
Well, they're clearly not. Clearly not. And I know they're considering live streaming, which cuts out all this interactivity. And I think it's a matter of resources, et cetera. And someone there to operate the Zoom.
I guess we lost somebody who was taking care of all this Zooming. There used to be
I was supposed to do a
you used
poetry
to say
workshop a
something
little bit
about
last week,
somebody's company,
because I
was
was
a
running a
video
retreat last
company
weekend.
took care of it.
No, that was only for the special events, but Mark Clapow's son was doing it for a while.
We had a break in the
Rena
afternoon.
was doing
and I
it for a
couldn't
while, but
summon
they
the
yeah,
strength at that
every
point.
now
It's
and
like,
again,
"Brother,
I
it's just
was
running all running the whole
moderating a
weekend
little bit,
retreat.
but
And so I was like, oh, and then I
and
also
just so you know, the recording is still on.
Recording equipment to record
Oh,
some of
yeah.
what was
Would you
happening.
think that I see Carol and/or Mim listed Alan Levitt and Bob Lubrand as co-chairs of the Inclusivity Committee? I would think maybe that committee and/or the religious practices or some other committee would be, if those people, the chairs of those committees are part of the board, which I think that's the way the board is formed, that I can send the recommendation about doing this best practices sort of search or research before they make some decisions, unless others have better suggestion.
Yeah.
No, I think
And just so you know, Rena's shutting it down from their end, but I'm the host now.
Oh, okay.
And let me see if that's really true. Sorry.
Well,
it takes
here,
me-
thank
Takes me a bit.
all five of us.
I'm gonna stop the recording, okay?
Sure.